Hello and welcome to NKD TRADEZONE. So right about today we'll be going on to the chart of BTC, highlighting what is currently happening in the market and how the next few days is probably going to be. Now, if you look at the chart of BTC, it is worth to note that we've actually been on a decisive uptrend since the 4th of November, which was almost 3 weeks ago, getting price as high as 99,000 and a little bit what higher beyond that. So following up on the chart of BTC, we can find out that unlike the previous days following, where we had a decisive downtrend at this zone 66,008 to the zone 89,006, we can find out that price has actually been going through a phase of consolidation. We had what momentum in the market, and once again we are going through another phase of consolidation. So technically we know that today being Saturday is the weekend, and market most likely just keeps on going in a choppy sideways if you zoom over to a lower time frame. Currently we are on the 1 day time frame over here. So looking into the lower time frames, you see the choppy sideways movement, a little bit of retracement in the market. So we commence on that. Now, the general knowledge of the market is the fact that price is fractal. No market ever keeps on going all the way to the up or all the way to the down. Even in a downtrend, even in the case of a project that is most definitely out of the system and is not trading on, you get to see some kind of phases of uptrend, downtrend, because transactions are happening. There's always a buyer to a seller and a seller to a buyer. In that given case now, we'll go over to today's video. Our first case study is going on to check out the supposed bottom which we had at the price of 66,008 few days ago. Now highlighting the bottom right about now, we will continue on our analysis. So if we look in now, there is something you should notice: the fact that to every given period, you will have a bottom that was followed by a preceding top, which in this case, this was our bottom right here, followed by what? This preceding top right about now. Let's get a color difference to that and talk about that in today's video. So we had a top here. Let's put that clearly at around 73,005, then a bottom following that at 66,008. I will give a clear logic of what happens at such scenarios and also what we can be expecting shortly. Now looking at the same thing here, this was somewhat of a bottom here and also what a top right about here. The same logic, the same analogy would be used here, would be used on the next. Now if you look at that clearly, we had what? This bottom followed by a rapid downtrend, followed by what? A recovery, and momentum was in the market going to the upside. We started seeing a phase here whereby we got into a consolidation. Finally what? We got a major pullback, a bigger pullback than we got here, and also as big as the first phase of pullback. So we got the first major phase of pullback, followed by a little pullback here, then the phase of consolidation. Now in that, if you trace this out, you will find out something that is going to happen shortly also happened then. And what was that? We brought out our trend line starting from the top here. As we stated, price is fractal, market must go all the way to the upside and to the downside. If you trace this out here now, you find this happened. So saying that this happened, we got what? A market structure of this level. We had a top here, another top, and another top. So let's get out this was a top, number one. This was a second top here, number two, and this was a third top. As you know, for a structure of this as a trend line to be valid, you need what? 3 tops and 3 bottoms. So in this case now, we got our first top here, which was the top of the structure, followed by the massive downtrend, which we got a decisive continuation to the upside as we are currently having, followed by the second phase, which gave a what? A pullback, followed by what? The third phase, which gave a higher pullback. So following up with this now, we can try to apply this now to the current system of the BTC price action. When we do that, we would find out something like this. So this, according to what I stated, was the current top followed by the bottom. Let's get our trend line and let's see if we can get something out. This is actually a repetitive structure. As you know, the market is much more like as if you are trying to predict the future, but rather than you predicting the future, we are making use of past occurrences, past patterns to be able to tell what can likely happen in the future. It does not need to be the exact replica, but to a very good extent, what happened yesterday might likely happen today. So you make use of that to know how you would go about the system. So let's get this done now. Put the trend line here as the first phase, second phase, and what? A third phase right about now. If you look at this, as I stated, this was the top, followed by its bottom. Hence, this is number one here. Following up with that, we have the number two here. And by expectation, we should be having the number three here, which according to what I believe should be coming up by this Tuesday. So this coming Tuesday, which is the 26th of November, we should have what? A system of rally, and we should finally top out somewhere around here. I'll back that up shortly with some reasons why I believe it's supposed to top around here, and with that we'll be able to discuss more into the system. Now looking at this, I've stated this that I see here as a top, a second top, and a third top. Following up with that, let's go over to the 1 hour time frame so we can look into something that has actually been occurring. Now following up with this, going into the 1 hour time frame, you can see a decisive uptrend from here, though it's in the phase of a consolidation, but still moving all the way to the upside. And let's get this down. So you got a price to this zone, went all the way to the top, got to the trend line to the top, got to the trend line, then we had what? A major push, and we are still continuing to the upside. And this particular phase now is actually going to continue up until what? We get a trend line touch. We are not going to come back at any given point soon to interact with this particular line. No way, not anytime soon would we see the price get to touch here. Rather, our short-term target is to consolidate around this phase, then what? Go all the way to the upside. Now, touching this trend line will then be the point of resistance in which we expect the price to reject, and at that a given stage, which can be, let's say, sometime earlier next week, Wednesday, Thursday. All these are not a financial advice, and I'm speaking based on a technical point of view. So by Tuesday, if we top out, we can see a massive dump sometime Tuesday, following that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And in all that, there is a direction that it's pointing at, and which is the price $85,000. So $85,000, 85.9 is going to be our price target for a dump. Hence, we are trying to say we are looking into something like this. Price consolidate around the weekend. We get all the way up by Tuesday, and price falls, let's say, by next weekend also. We are going all the way to the downside. So this is the current expectation now of what we are going to see on BTC, backed by 1 or 2 points, which I'll be stating out very shortly as we continue on the video. So looking at this, first of all, we are on the 1 hour time frame. The chart is much more sketchy. You don't see a direct movement, but you can see a descent here, which we go to our bottom here, a massive uptrend followed by this phase of an uptrend. But in the stage that we are in now, we are seeing much more of a confined uptrend, unlike a period of massive momentum. As we can see here, we are in much more of a confined uptrend, having to see much more of what? A price retracement, and a higher high after a lower high or a lower low, and all that is happening within this world stage right about here. So in my own opinion now, I'm still of the fact that we have touched here, we're getting a second touch here, we're getting a third touch here very soon, which should be a point of what? Invalidation if we get to break out. But most likely that will be a point that will act what? As a retracement. It should act as a retracement, which we should finally see the price dropping all the way to the downside. So following up with that, now let's get over now to the 1 day time frame, bring up our RSI, and then we can check out to know what the RSI is speaking of. So as you know, the RSI now is currently on a phase of being what? Overbought. Is at a phase, is currently over 70, at the phase of being overbought. And one thing about the RSI is the fact that the RSI works in two ways. The first way is the fact that it just dumps all the way to the bottom. As we can see, the RSI around this zone, it just dumps all the way to the bottom. Hence, we see a massive dump in the market, or it actually goes on a slow descent over to the what? To the zone of 0.5 or the 50 zone right about here, which is the center line of the RSI. Then we can see a continuation once again to the upside. But in this case, we are most likely by next week going to find ourselves, after we get to the top of this trend line, getting a severe rejection. So rather than having to get the RSI do something like a choppy sideways movement and retracing to the downside, correcting around there and continue to the upside, you might just see a very severe dump to the downside. Hence, the RSI might be getting an action of this sort. So something of this sort. Target is around next week Friday, next week Saturday. So a descent of this sort would be what looked out for. And in that case now, continuing on the analysis here, as I stated, price is fractal. We expect what has happened in the past to happen currently. We have been on an uptrend, on a decisive uptrend in the Bitcoin price chart, and at a very given stage, with even the price movement right about now, we cannot get to see that volatility as we saw at this given zone. It does not exist at this area. So what we can see is the price just rallying all the way to the top, topping around 105 to 110,000 dollars. Once we get to that price range, then we can look in for what? A correction to the downside. We can look in for a correction to the downside, and following that, you get, as I've stated, just this big candle followed by what? A massive rejection all the way to the price 85,000 or thereabout, which if you check by percentage, from there all the way to this price range is around 22%. 22% is not that high of a drop to see for a correction of this kind. So for a correction of this kind, a 22% is not impossible. You can actually get a 22% dump within some few days. It only takes 3-4 days. You can see a massive dump on BTC. Traders have not begun locking profit yet. BTC has been on an uptrend for a very long time. Alt season has not really started. So traders having to lock profit at this stage is not that much impossible. Many traders would like to lock profit because the market is not looking as enticing as it did as of 2 weeks ago. Also last week, we are having some higher highs, but still it's not as enticing as it was some few days back. So in that given sense now, looking at all this, looking at the BTC price chart as a naked chart, you find out that it's quite simple. We are still very much on an uptrend. We would likely continue on an uptrend for a short period of time. But bringing out the RSI, we can see the RSI is currently on a divergence here. So the arrow to the upside, and then the arrow to the downside on the RSI right about here. So the divergence is simply a period whereby you have the price giving you higher highs and then your RSI divergence giving you a low. So for now, we are getting ourselves a divergence on the 1-day time frame, which is actually a bearish reversal. So the divergence is a bearish reversal signal at this given stage. And likely all we have to do is to see the price move all the way to the top. So price will do something like a swing all the way to the top side. So a swing, we could still continue to the top side, then before finally what? Breaking out. The same thing with our RSI here. We could still continue a little bit to the upside, possibly going all the way as high as this zone. We might not invalidate it by giving a straight line of this sort. So we might not invalidate it for the next few days. We can be consolidating around there, but still at the end of the day, we get the price what's giving us a higher low, which still validates our bearish divergence. So right about now, this is my bias for the market, what I think about the market and how we are likely going to go about the next few days on the BCC chart, with our target still going to be around the 85k zone. Starting from early next week, we get all the way down to around the 85k zone, which in that case now you can see that particular area can act as what? A double bottom. So this is a bottom all the way to the top, have another bottom, then we can finally continue our rally to the upside.